The Go Radio Business Show with Trywire.com.
Tom, good morning.
Good morning, Willie.
Well, I think we got a wee insight this morning in relation to what the Chancellor is thinking about the budget. Obviously, she's made a statement this morning, pre-budget, and it's fair to say that, reading between the lines, that taxes are definitely going to go up.
Yeah, so, by the time this show goes out, this is maybe old news, Willie, but I got up to watch it as well because I thought she was going to give us an insight, but I think she was just softening us up. Now, you know more about this than I do, but, the Labour Party made certain political guarantees, let's put it, about tax on the working person. I don't think Labour sees you and me as working people, Willie, in the definition, which I take exception to. But anyway, and I'm a bit more sanguine, if that's the right word, about it. I think the country is in a bit of a state. We've got too much debt, 2.1 trillion. People were saying to me after last week's show, we've never heard the word trillion. Now you don't talk about anything else. So, 2.1 trillion. Remember, that's 12 nothings behind it.
Tom, it's actually worse than that now. It's 2.6 trillion.
Oh, is it, Willie? Oh, my God.
2.6. But what's half a trillion among friends?
Between pals, Willie. So I believe, listen, 1 pence on income tax raises about £8.1 billion. And I think if the Labour Party, which is our government, if Keir Starmer and the Chancellor were to say, look, we need this as a temporary measure to reduce our debt, we're going to try our very best to put the environment for company growth, and we're going to look at how we spend your money, because it is, it's the taxpayers' money that the government spends, and we're going to look at ways of saving money to spend your money more efficiently, then a temporary increase in income tax, I think people would understand. But if it's not with these measures in place, then I think people, obviously the other political parties will say, oh, you broke this, you broke that. I'm quite relaxed about that. What do you think from a political point of view, Willie, on this?
Well, I think you used a word there that nobody's used, and I think if they started to introduce the word temporary, people can get behind it.
Yeah.
I think it was bold. I think it's bold, and she's absolutely determined to play within the fiscal rules. As long as she can demonstrate that a tax hike, for whatever it may be, and to be fair, the Tories done this. Remember, the Tories put taxes up but told you they would bring them down, and they're down in a sliding scale that they'd done that. So I think if she'd done that, but I'm delighted to hear that she said that, it's about a sensible budget that the country needs, right, rather than a budget for political expediency. So I think that, but you have to explain that to the people, right, to say, no, here's the reason why you should vote for us. And you get the usual, you've got all the opposition parties, which they've started already, jumping down our throat, saying we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And now what they're trying to do now is, and it was quite good that she was actually making the point today about the OBR and about how that's a lot about historical rather than going forward. So I think it's good to make that point as well. But it'll be interesting. And I think that you're right. I think the people with the broadest shoulders, me and you, and back to this definition of working people, if you're paying NI and you're paying tax on your income, you're a working person, right? Yeah. There's no doubt about that. And it doesn't matter whether you're earning 25 grand or 250 grand or 2.5 million, that you're a working person, you're contributing. And I think that, as I say, people no mind, right, paying a wee bit more tax. But I think it's some of the other things that people are getting upset about. Should have to demonstrate that this hurt that everybody's taking is great in the longer term, right? But I think the point you made as well is that people are still not happy with public services. And she keeps stating that she won't cut anything. And we keep going back to the NHS and we go back to everybody wants more money, which is fair enough. But we have to show that we're spending the people's money better. So where is
That's it.
the department for waste? You know, where are we doing? No dodge, right? But what are we doing to improve productivity also, and what are we doing also to make sure that we're getting best bang for our buck when the government spend money? So I think that it'll be interesting to see when the budget finally delivered on the 26th of November. But I think that people will be happy to do a wee bit more as long as they definitely see green shoots that the government know how we're doing, how we're spending the money.
Yeah. And listen, the simple facts, and we talk about it every week, is that we have, as our economy, and this is not Scotland, Scotland's part of the UK, obviously, but it's a UK-wide thing. We have borrowed too much money. It's understandable. COVID hit us, and nobody really talks about the amount of money we borrowed for COVID loans, furlough schemes, etc., etc. That all had to be paid for by us, the taxpayer. We're beginning to hear, and she did mention it, and I've been mentioning it a long time, Brexit. Brexit has cost this country being the UK, many billions. That's just a fact, Willie. I don't think it's even debated anymore. Nigel Farage doesn't even get asked about it. But that has cost our country tens of billions of pounds. So we're in a bit of a sticky wicket. Now, there's only two ways to get your debt down. You either put your tax take up, which is growth, and I would like to see in this budget some hope for businesses. We'll come on to talk about how businesses feel in the show today, and every business I speak to is just a little bit hesitant about investing. They're just worried about they're going to get clobbered again. You know, they were clobbered with NI the last time. Their utility bills are going up. The cost of employing people's going up. So everybody in business is having a bit of a harder time. So there needs to be some hope for business in the budget. And then if she said, and we're going to look at the way we spend your money, I think that's an absolute pillar of this. We've got to get the spending down. And I'm not talking about cutting spending for people who need the help. You and I absolutely agree 100% on that. But there's a lot of waste. The civil service is at an all-time high of people. Are we getting efficiency there? Are we getting a bang for our buck there? That's where a lot of our taxes go. And I'll just repeat this because I've said it for a couple of times. After the NHS, our biggest single payment of our tax goes to paying the interest on our debt, not bringing the debt down, simply spending the interest. And while Rachel Reeves was on her feet this morning, the cost of our borrowing, the cost of gilts as they call it, actually came down a fraction because they like that Rachel Reeves is going to stick to her fiscal promises. So I think a government that's honest with its people, Willie, sets it out, but it also says, yes, we want businesses to grow, and here's how we're helping. And yes, we've got to spend your money wiser.
I think the most damning thing in the statement this morning was that we have the largest deficit of any of the G7 countries. We've got the largest debt, right? And that's scary. And that's what people should take on board. And if we're trying to get long-term stability here, we need to be bold and we need to think out the box. But also the point that you made, £1 in every 10 in the tax take goes to pay the debt. Right. So that's crazy. So I think if we address that, imagine we were not having to pay that debt payment and with all that money to help, services. So I think that hopefully, going back to your point about Brexit, where you're dead right, the effect that this had in the deficit, I would like to see the government working closer now with the EU in relation to trading, which I know when they first came in, they were working on this big time. A lot of other things have got in the way, to be fair, the conflicts in the Middle East and in Ukraine. Hopefully now we can get back down to getting round the table with the EU to try and take a lot of the pain away that has been the result of Brexit. So that would certainly help grow the economy. And she did say, to be fair, that we've heard it before, but that it will be a budget for growth, right? So let's see if the proof is in the pudding, then it'll be a good budget. But let's wait and see.
Okay, I think we have exhausted that one, Willie.
Okay, we have mentioned, or I have mentioned over the last couple of weeks about, I believe that the stock market is overheated and there's going to be a correction. And it's interesting that we mentioned it last week that Michael Burry, the guy who's seen the crash coming, already mentioned it. But it's interesting this week, Tom, that 2 or 3 of the major players and the major financial institutions in the States have all said the same thing, right? So people are saying there could be a correction of between 10 and 20%, and they're saying it's maybe not a bad thing. But my worry with that is that if there's a 10 or 20% correction across the board, loads of companies are going to feel a real draft, because it's actually the big 7 that is making the market look overheated. And I think in saying that, if anyone watched the programme this week about Trump and the Titans in America and the power of big tech behind the scenes in American politics, is scary. Absolutely scary.
It's very scary.
To see that Peter Thiel and David Sachs and the people, I think they're called the PayPal Mafia. So Elon Musk, Peter Thiel and David Sachs. If anybody has not seen that programme, you have to watch it, because that is scary. The power of big tech, and like how David Sachs can organise a fundraiser in one night and charge 300 people $500,000 to come and raise for Donald Trump, $150 million in one night. And guess what? 9 months later, we won. David Sachs becomes the minister in charge of crypto and AI. And now, all the rules in relation to this now, and it's brilliant watching statements. Donald Trump, absolutely slaughtering crypto 4 or 5 years ago. And you've got people like, J.D. Vance completely slaughtering Donald Trump, right? And then suddenly you're vice president, and work out how Peter Thiel and the PayPal Mafia played a huge part in that. It's actually scary.
Yeah, I've just finished a book on Peter Thiel. It's quite a tough read, but I think he's probably the most sinister of them all. He's just kind of behind the scenes, but organising things. His latest big investment is in a company called Palantir. Have a wee read and see what you think. You definitely come out of it more worried than you started. And the other thing about that programme, it was on the BBC, was just how brazen Trump is about lining his own pockets. Because he's president, there's supposed to be this division, and he's not supposed to, him or his family, make any money from him being president. Well, Donald Trump has thrown that rule out. He's launched his own meme coin, and his wife has launched a meme coin, which is part of crypto. And they reckon on the show that his family has benefited to tens of billions of dollars. Well, my goodness, how the world is on an edge at this point in time.
I would recommend everybody to watch that programme, Trump and the Titans. Yeah. Getting a wee bit back closer to home, Tom, and something dear to my heart. It's sad this week when you see that some of the stuff that's been said now about the lack of funding for colleges. Right, so
yes.
You reckon there's a £950 million deficit. And when we've been talking for weeks and weeks about the skill shortage, especially in the trades, this is a disaster. We'll talk about colleges maybe closing.
Wow. I mean, there are certain things government can do and there's certain things government can't do. So if they want a pro-growth agenda, we've talked about it so often, housing should be at the centre of it. What's the 2 things that will deliver better housing? One is skills. We've talked about the lack of skills. Where Where do these people get trained? At colleges. So governments can decide to allocate our tax into colleges to get the young people into the trades, which you know better than me. And then we've got to sort the planning so that things get through planning quicker so we can get on with building them. But, without those two things, the UK government is never going to hit its target. I think it was naive to put in a target. One of my pals, Steve Morgan, is biggest shareholder and the biggest house builder in Britain, said straight away when they did it, he said, we will not be able to do this. Skills and planning. I mean, why doesn't governments listen to people like that, Willie?
Well, my point, and you've been the same in business, see whoever they did listen to and they gave them that advice, you've got to ask them back and say, are you listening to them again? Like, would you ever listen to them again? Ever? Because they've now put you behind the 8 ball. Right? Everyone who was involved in delivering houses knew when that statement was made that this was, a noose round your neck. Right? So I just think it was crazy. But they're right, there's no chance of making the 1.5 million target.
And your point is, if indeed, and I don't know the rights and wrongs of this, that the Scottish government is £1 billion underspent, because you said last week they got a higher Barnett consequentials than they were expecting, then put some of it into the colleges that train the people in the trades that's going to get us to build, baby, build.
Yep, I agree with that totally, and we'll make that point. Some good news. You see that Scottish businesses had a bumper quarter in the third quarter of 2025 with VC investment. Something we've raised something like 116 million, and that's up more than 200% from the previous quarter. The largest single raise was in DL Mining, which netted 67 million. And this for a mining service platform, almost 30% of investments in the quarter were in software-related businesses.
I mean, I always say when people moan about, I've got turned down, there's no money, there is money for the right businesses, Willie. And, what we're trying to coach through our scale-up programme is to get investor ready and get your business in a position where the money that's out there, and there's a lot of money chasing good businesses. And sometimes we've got to tell the businesses the hard fact that, your business isn't investor ready yet, but we try and help them get there. But this is good news. And from KPMG, looking at it, quite incredible, this DL Mining. I don't know much about that company, but I'm going to look into it. So it got 67 million, Willie. Yeah. Wow.
And following on for that, it's great to see that Scottish Enterprise have announced another round of the well-received US market booster programme. 6 new companies have been selected and will benefit from focused help to break the US market, which is brilliant news. The programme isn't about grants or funding. Instead, it focuses on mentorship, expert support and advice, and legal support to break into the US. It forms part of SE's commitment to double the number of scale-ups in Scotland in the next decade. If that comes off and it works, brilliant, great initiative. Well done to Adrian and the team there, and we wish all this every success.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what Scottish Enterprise should be doing and are doing. I'm looking forward to getting the new chairman, Sir Jim, friend of the show, on so we can put him through his paces about where he's taking Scottish Enterprise. But this is great news. Well done, Adrian. More power to your elbow.
And brilliant. And we'll keep an eye on that, see how that goes. We'll kind of track that, see how it's happening. But I think the big thing in talking about the tax bands again, changes in the income tax bands, it's kind of been leaked this week that the Scottish Government, with £1 billion hole if they don't follow the rises in rates. Could the government cut other costs and use the chance to sneak ahead on tax rates?
Yeah, there's a good paper by the Fraser of Allender Institute on this if you're that way inclined. I'm a bit of an anorak and I have read it. And this is simply if Westminster, say, put 2 pence on income tax, there would be £1 billion supposedly come out of the Barnett consequentials. Just the way that the arithmetic works on that, Willie, I'm sure Westminster would somehow try and balance that. This isn't a party political thing, or maybe it is, maybe I'm naive. But, this is about understanding how Scotland is financed, and Scotland is financed in a big way from Westminster. It's just the arithmetic, Willie.
Do you think, Tom, that after what now, 26 years from the invent of devolution, that it's time for a serious look at what they think they got right and got wrong in the rules that surrounded devolution?
I think this would be a time, and we've got the Scottish election coming up probably in May of 2026. It's not that far away, Willie. And as you know, we've managed to get every party leader to come to our conference. It'll have been finished by the time this goes out, but every party leader is coming to our conference to tell us what they're going to do for business. Because in that room, Willie, up at Gleneagles this week, we've got the people who pay the majority of income tax in Scotland and the vast majority of business tax in Scotland. So I like to think we've put together a group of people who fund Scotland. Now, is that right? Is that wrong? What are governments going to do for those people so we can expand our businesses? But, what I would say, and there's this huge thing going to be again about, Scotland should be independent, should be this. The way Scotland, so I don't think there's any question Scotland could be independent. But the question is, how do we get there? And I think we get there, first of all, by competent government. And I would say that has not been proven through devolution, that we've had competent government who can steer our country to an independent nation. That might be controversial. That's my personal opinion. So that's what I think about it.
Right. So obviously it's a good point you make about who's to say that it couldn't survive as an independent country. But the number one platform for that would be about delivering a surplus, right? And at the moment that no one could argue with you, from the Scottish Government or the SNP, and I don't want this to be political, but in a business term, if we manage to have a fiscal framework that allows us to grow in growth in business, and that we actually manage to pay all our bills, that we have the surplus, we didn't need to bother about the Barnett formula, whatever, then I think that is a case. But unfortunately, we're a long way off from getting to break even, never mind getting to a surplus. So it'd be interesting that after over 25 years now, that people like the Fraser of Allender Institute and other people who are not political put up a case and say, look, this is what the country would look like, blah, 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 and then people could make their mind up. But I think at the moment we're a long way away from that. And also that, that since devolution, it's fair to say, there isn't many, whoever was in charge, Labour, SNP, whatever, coalitions, whoever's been in charge, I think it's hard to point to things where we think we're much better off, or we're better off at all.
And you're dead right. The economic case for independence has not been made. If it's just more of the same, Willie, then it's absolutely a fact that everybody will be worse off in Scotland if we went independent. And politicians won't tell you that because they're not being truthful with you. I'm telling the Scottish population that's a fact. And the only way I think economically Scotland could be an independent nation is if we look to Ireland and we look to Singapore, and I've given both of these case studies to the government. We need to have a country that attracts wealth creators, that we get a tax take up, not a tax rate up, and in that way we can afford to be independent. But the present, if it's just more of the same, every single person in Scotland would be worse off.
And I think, Tom, this is a really good point you make, right? Because what you get is you maybe get some nationalist supporters watching this, listen to what you've got to say and say, oh, here's Tom Hunter saying we can't be independent. You're not saying that. You're saying the opposite. You're saying, but what you need to do is be clever about how you actually make the argument to get enough people to vote for it. right? And this is
Yes.
what happens. So, and unfortunately, a lot of people listen to a debate, they take one thing that's been said and they jump on that. But what you're saying is, I sent you a report on Singapore. I sent you a report on Ireland, right? So what you were actually doing was try to help them make a case. Whereas when
Yeah.
people say, "Oh, wait a minute, no, he's not," you're not, you're not, right? And I think as well. I said that. I remember saying it tongue in cheek 20 odd years ago. Alex Salmond, God rest him, Alec. If you come to me tomorrow and tell me that you want to turn Scotland into Monaco without the weather, I'll vote for it. Right?
Well, there
If
you
you say
go.
that we are small enough to be a tax haven, right? We've got a lot of clever and bright people. So certainly, if we'd done that, then you might have a case. But who are me and you to tell other people how you get to independence?
I know, Willie, and people will say, "Oh, it's all right for Hunter and Haughey," but you know, this isn't about us. We're going to be okay. I understand that, but I'm telling you that the poorest people in Scotland would be worse off in an independent Scotland if it's just the same as we're doing today.
Yeah, and people who say that about us, we're sitting here, right? We're sitting here paying our taxes. We've both
Aye.
sold many businesses. We didn't take the capital gains and run away, right? We didn't want to go and live somewhere else, right? In the meantime, we've been trying to grow other businesses. You've been invested in other businesses all over. Nobody's trying harder to make businesses successful than you, right? So anybody that wants to come and have an argument, we're happy to have a debate, right? With anybody that thinks that that is the situation. All we're saying is, and what we're basically saying is, we just need clever thinking, out the box thinking that could maybe motor Scotland way forward.
Yeah. So listen, I'm happy to debate it with anybody because you and I care about this country. We're not denying Scotland could be an independent nation. We're just saying it needs to be cleverer in the approach so that we don't all end up poorer because of it.
Yeah, and I think just another bit of news that kind of points at what we're talking about. Sobering results for the SSB survey recently shows that 29% of all Scottish SMEs expect to shrink in size over the next 12 months, and 57% of them say they're going to have a drop in profits in Q3. The confidence levels are going down, and we're saying that this is the key things that you need to home in on, right? This is the number one thing. This is the thing that gets everybody. And this, to be fair, we've said it for weeks and weeks and weeks. And here's a message to Rachel and everybody else watching this. The number one thing that people are concerned about out there right now is the cost of living crisis. Number one thing. Right? It's not about people in boats. It's not about anything else. These are all, they are the number one thing. So whatever party it is that comes up with a remedy to get people a wee bit happier, to see that there's green shoots, there's light at the end of the tunnel, I am telling you, this should be the number one thing that people take to the polls next year, because I'll guarantee you this is what's going to get people's votes if you can show the people there's a bit of hope that you're going to turn things round.
Yeah, and the Federation of Small Business do a good survey. I don't like what it's reported, but this is why at the Hunter Foundation we try and help small and scaling businesses. Small companies in Scotland employ a third of the total Scottish workforce. Now, we want to get that higher so that we can help these businesses employ more people, pay their taxes, and make the world go round. So that's a very sobering survey from the Federation of Small Business. I think we should get the Scottish Government to listen to it. I think we should get the UK Government to listen to it and really help these businesses grow.
Let's start with getting the message to them up at Glen Eagles this week.
The Go Radio Business Show with Trywire.com.
Tom, got a fantastic guest on the show this week. We've been trying to get him for weeks and weeks and weeks. His name is Lee Cronin, and he's the founder and CEO of Chemify. Welcome to the show.
Nice to be here.
Well, Lee, it's brilliant. Is it Professor Cronin we should call you?
Actually, you should call me Regis. That's the old-fashioned term because I'm the Regis professor, but Lee is absolutely fine.
Lee is fine. Now, I think we should just keep this in the basic because I know you're a chemical wonder, but Willie and I only got O-level chemistry a few years ago. So if we can keep the chemistry quite simple, we might understand it. But it's brilliant to have you on the show, Lee, because we're talking about you raised money a few weeks ago in acid rain. I've never heard of this company, but there's so many good things about this company. And we said to Sean to get you on, so I'm delighted you're here. I want you to start, just tell us a bit about your background, anything in your upbringing that pointed to the amazing things you're doing now, and then we can get into the business and Glasgow University and all these interesting stuff. So let's tell me about your childhood, Lee.
My childhood, oh my God, I haven't been to my therapist for a while. So I grew up in the southeast of England in a place called Ipswich. Actually, my father is a Irish immigrant, came from Ireland, Southern Ireland when he was 11, my builder, and my mother worked as a nurse. But since I can ever remember, I've always been interested in how things work, so I took everything apart, everything. And I made my first computer when I was about 8 years old. I made it, and I made it using the washing machine, the TV, and the telephone, which is kind of very, very posh way of saying I took apart the TV, the washing machine, and the telephone, told my parents I was making a computer, and all they had was a broken TV, washing machine, and telephone. So I guess that probably tells you all you need to know in some regard. So I've always been very interested in how these things worked. And my father, in kind of desperation, bought me a computer, a ZX81, a Sinclair one at the time, and I got a chemistry set. And I was like, how do I connect these together? And I guess my entire life is about trying to work out how I could program chemistry with the ZX81.
Wow. So do you think it was nature or nurture, Lee?
Actually, it was necessity, right? I think there's a great line in an English film with Nail and I where they say, "Help, we've gone on holiday by mistake," right? I think Richard E. Grant is the character that says it, right?
Right.
Because and I often say, "Help, I've become a CEO by mistake." And so I had no intention of being CEO. I do not want to be a CEO. I'm not an entrepreneur. I was like, I didn't care. But actually, that was wrong. Because I need to build because the entire reason for Chemify is I want to solve something that's kind of crazy, which is the origin of life. How did life start on Earth? And that's a big question, right? But like Elon Musk's mission for SpaceX is to make humanity interplanetary, but he's going to pay for it using Starlink. I wanted to discover the origin of life, but I'm going to pay for it by discovering new drugs, new materials, and basically a new manufacturing, if you like, paradigm. And because the idea was so complicated at the beginning, no one knew what I was talking about. So I was like, oh dear, I suppose I have to become the CEO. And over the years, I've basically had to explain myself to more people. And at the same time, you have a crazy idea. Well, what did you do, Lee? Well, I wrote, there's this programming language in computers that we use called BASIC, which is something that we've been around for 40 years. And I made a BASIC for chemistry. What is a BASIC for chemistry? It was like a Delia Smith cookbook, where it's like a list. Add eggs, do this, cut this, fry it for this amount of time. Hey presto, it all works. And the problem with chemistry, every cook is different. You have no idea what they've done. It tastes good, but you can't replicate it. Chemistry is a bit like that. So all I wanted to do was make a recipe book for chemistry that everyone could learn, then use it for drug discovery, so I could then build the system. And that's kind of where it all came from.
So how did you get, you're starting taking your mum and dad's washing machine apart. So which university did you go to study this?
Yeah, so I actually wasn't allowed to go to university to start with. I was actually put in the low IQ school in Ipswich. Because I was determined that I couldn't read or write or do mathematics. And what actually happened is I spent all my time I went to the library and getting my own books. I went to the local chemist and just got him to give me illicit substances I could set fire to. So I had my own laboratory. And then I didn't really understand there was this thing called university, because my parents were working class. They never went to university. Right. I don't even have an O-level in chemistry. I'm jealous of you guys if you genuinely do, right? I don't have it.
You don't have an O-level chemistry?
No.
I was going to ask what an O-level was.
And so what happened is I then went to my school, sixth form, right? I know the Scottish system was a little bit different, but not yet. And then I had a really good chemistry teacher who basically took me aside and let me set fire to everything. Yeah, I was kind of the miscreant. And then they convinced me that I could do chemistry at university, and that's the only place that would accept me. And I went to York to do chemistry. And then I did my degree there, and then I realized there's this thing called a PhD, which is what people who are really confused can do. And I did my PhD in biological chemistry and then looking at how cells worked. And I was like, oh, cells are really complicated chemistry sets. I want to program a cell. And so that's what I did during my PhD. And then after that, I went to this place called Edinburgh. Actually, in York, had lots of Scottish, still legal to kill a Scotsman within the city of York, apparently, with a bow and arrow. They might have repealed that.
We better stay away from there, Willie.
So if any of my friends are watching this and suddenly get invited by me to come down to York, they know what's coming.
Yeah. I think it's it's a myth. I don't think it's true. But then I went to Edinburgh for further studies, did what's called a postdoc, and then it's kind of where I got exposed to Scotland. And I then went to Germany, then to Birmingham, and I went, no, I'll go back to Scotland, and I ended up in Glasgow.
In Glasgow. So isn't it amazing how everybody I speak to, there's usually a teacher at school has taken an interest in them, because most entrepreneurial journeys, and I disagree with you, you're not an entrepreneur. In my definition, you definitely are, because we all don't really fit into school, but a teacher sees something within us that says, look, I'm going to help you. And thank goodness we've got to keep the teaching profession looking out for that. Because imagine they hadn't spotted you and helped you, that would have been a loss to everybody. So you end up at Glasgow University. Is that because of its prowess in chemistry, or?
So actually, Glasgow, I will just say one thing about the teachers. I totally agree with you. One of the things the UK has got, and I'm really optimistic on the UK, is the UK, although I know we have our kind of class systems and Oxford and Cambridge and all this stuff, but actually, if you are a miscreant at school, or you're a bit of a tearaway, you can make it. And I think the UK anarchists are very good at innovation. And I think that's one of the reasons why the UK has so many innovators. What we've got to do is go from the innovation up. But to back to your question about Glasgow, I chose Glasgow. I mean, between you and I, Birmingham paid me to leave. I'd not told anyone this before. And I had to, and Glasgow couldn't afford me. I had to pay Glasgow to join. And
really?
And that was Glasgow chemistry is one of the most famous chemistry departments on the planet.
Is it?
But it's a victim of its own success. There's many Nobel Prize winners, very famous professors, and they had a lot of money, old money, in Glasgow chemistry. And over the years, that kind of went through its heyday, and it was kind of going down in a slump. Now, Glasgow chemistry is amazing. Nothing to do with me, actually. They've just got all these really amazing people there, but I happen to be part of it. And the great thing about Glasgow when I joined is the damn students are just amazing. I mean, they don't think that England exists, so they don't go to Oxford or Cambridge, they go to Glasgow. So I have access to Oxford and Cambridge level students at Glasgow. And the other thing the university allowed me to do was to hire people into my team, not just from chemistry, but from computer science, engineering, mathematics. The university was very progressive. This couldn't happen anywhere else in the world. Couldn't happen in Harvard, ETH, nowhere. Happened in Glasgow. And that's why it worked for me, because the university was so progressive and I was so annoying progressive.
So then what made you take the leap that suddenly now, from studying, getting your degree, your PhD, what made you say, well, you know what, it's time to go out in the big bad world now and make this work?
Well, I wanted to make this, I wanted to discover the origin of life. So I needed to build a search engine, a Google for chemistry. So Google is like just an algorithm that searches the internet to find the stuff. My one was like an automated chemistry set that would just check chemical space. And that worked pretty well. I was able to publish some papers, and people got, it was a lot of prestige. But then the academia went, nah, we don't care. And I realized the distance between science and technology can be quite large. And given the taxpayer over the years have given me all this money to train people, and I hope I've been doing a good job, right? I've had many hundreds of people through my team. I was like, but I think we can use this to literally cure cancer, or to make a new type of liquid crystal for better displays, or to reduce global warming. So global warming and cancer, they seem quite interesting things. So I thought, okay, I'll start a company. And I went to the university, and the university said, and I said to the university, it's like, you're like almost 600 years old. You've had no billion-dollar companies. And they were like, yep. I was like, I've got this idea. I think we could turn it into a billion-dollar company. And then they were like, well, that's cool. And I said, there's only one problem. And they said, what's that? So I think I need to run it, but I'm completely incompetent. And they went, hasn't stopped you so far. And so the university and I have worked in partnership to kind of build the company, they got me connected with the city council. We're going to build a hub in Govan. And if I can find 22 million, if you know anyone.
Willie knows somebody, yeah.
We're going to build a HQ in Govan in the next couple of years that will, in the end, employ a couple of thousand people. And so to go from the university where we've got this idea search engine to starting the company, to growing the company, to then making sure the things are basically going to work, to then make the global HQ in Govan, it's kind of a bit of a kick for me, right? Because I love Glasgow, what it's given me as a city, but I also don't like the disparity, right? And I think it's time that we can stop being miserable and actually build stuff.
I think, sorry, Tom, I was just going to say, I think we've met Scotland's Professor Chris Evans.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I think so. I love it.
You need to introduce you to him.
So, Lee, give us some of the stats, because I've got down here that you're building this thing in Maryhill. Is that right?
Yep.
So what are you building in Maryhill?
So the Chemifarm is open in Maryhill, opened in June. And basically, so what people have been building for AI, everyone talks about data centers. A data center has hardware for crunching numbers and hard disks, right? It's like a big data center. What I've invented is the equivalent of a data center for chemistry, but you need to do real chemistry. So I made what I call a Chemifarm. And when I started the company in 2022. I built it in the Arc at the University of Glasgow. And I raised a little bit of money. And the temptation I'd seen, a lot of entrepreneurs had gone really slowly because they were quite tentative. And I was like, screw that. I'm going to be dead for so long. Let's just try it, right? Let's just burn all the money. Literally, I went outside and had a bonfire of all the money, burn all the money. And the way I burnt all the money is I hired as many smart people as possible who believed in the mission, right? And then they came in, and then I realized the company was going to fail. I wasn't going to get the next tranche of funding without the factory. I didn't have any money for the factory, but I signed a lease on the unit in Maryhill. And then the university and the Glasgow City Council and the Glasgow, I cannot shout out the City Council enough. They're being brilliant, right? Absolutely fantastic. And even Scottish Enterprise and Innovate UK. Scottish Enterprise, I can tell you some stories about Scottish Enterprise, but they've been great. They are really putting their money where their mouth is, collaborating with the council, and then helping me get money from the UK into this nucleus. So what I built is I then managed to not go bust. That's what I'm saying. It's a very long way of saying I raised the money to build the factory as I was building it, because I started, and then the factory now opened, and we're now getting that factory up to scale. And what the factory does is it discovers new drug candidates. So a company will come to us and say, hey, we have a problem. We want to look at this disease. It could be bowel cancer, or could be tuberculosis, or whatever. And we say, okay, cool. And then we do computation, which is a technology I invented. Computation is like computation, but just for chemistry. So we then basically dream up all these molecules, and then we make them for real. That's the number one thing that we are doing in Glasgow. We are manufacturing novel molecules that could be the future cures, and just showing how that scales. And then the idea is that Maryhill is a first go of this, and we're going to build thousands of them around the world. So Chemify is going to be a little bit like Rolls-Royce. What does Rolls-Royce do? It builds jet engines and puts them on airplanes, and airplanes fly everywhere. Chemify is going to build chemifarms that go all around the world in the same way that NVIDIA builds graphics cards and puts them in data centers. So we're literally every single molecule invented by humans within 20 years on planet Earth should go through Chemify and should be HQ'd in Glasgow, and will make Google look like a small company.
I love it.
Are you still at the research stage, or have you started? Do you have sales already?
We have, look, this is the other thing. It's hilarious, right? Like, if we didn't have any sales, I would be so, well, I say killed is the wrong answer because they're not gangsters. I would be so bust. We do have sales. We have 7 of the top 20 pharma companies are working with us right now. And really, the technology works. That's really exciting, right? We have the market. There's an infinite market, so we'll make a lot of money and make a lot of discoveries. But what we've got to do is almost like we're inventing the aeroplane for chemistry, and we've got to not crash. So, and the other important thing is we've got to be safe, right? So there's this kind of, I'm playing 3D chess right now, trying to work out, which is why I'm so unqualified to be an entrepreneur. But however, I figured if I don't die and I don't run out of money, it'll work. So that's what I'm working on, not dying and not running out of money.
And Lee, I think you've been very modest. If you don't mind saying, tell the viewers and the listeners how much you've actually raised.
Oh, today it's about $100 million, and we have 180 people in the company, most of which are based in Glasgow. We have some footprint in Silicon Valley, some around the world. And I also managed to still run my research group, which is 45 people at the University of Glasgow, which is kind of a hobby, but it's not really just a hobby because it's providing the connection to the big dream. The dream is solve the origin of life and cure cancer, and make a Google for chemistry in Glasgow. So just modest aims.
Can I ask you, in a couple of minutes we've got left, you've obviously got your Chemifarm in Maryhill. You mentioned earlier about the hub in Govan, right? You try to raise money for that. So let's use this as an advert for you. What do you want the hub in Govan to do?
So the Health Innovation Hub, I'm going to turn it into the Chemify Innovation Hub, like, because we're the people. So what I did is I took a place of renting it. It's just a brand new building the university has got funding for with a great company, Cadence, and they've been brilliant. It's a really high quality building. I've got 2 floors, 38,000 square feet. And I took the decision to lease it before I raised the 50 million. And the reason I did that, because I have no money, because everyone says you raise 50 million, right? You can afford to, I don't have any money for the hub. But the reason why I leased it is that keeps Chemify's HQ in Glasgow. Otherwise, my US investors would be dragging me to the US. So I did this as because I believe in the university and what we've done, the people here. So our global research hub is going to connect with research we did in Glasgow, in Scotland, in the UK, funded by the UK, Scottish taxpayers, to basically invent new mechanisms for searching chemical space. That's a very fancy way of saying drug discovery. We're going to work out how we can scale so we can make, them on demand. So make a kind of mobile unit for drug making, for personalized medicine. And we can do a new type of manufacturing for discovering new materials, for sustainability. And so those 3 things together, we need the brains, and the brains are based here, right? In the UK. In the US, the brains are there, but I mean, I'm based here, and we've got a very deep kind of set of roots in what we've tried to build. It's taken over 15 years to get here. And so that's what HIH is going to do. And I'm going to get the money if it kills me. And I don't want it to kill me because then I'll fail, right? And I said, don't die and don't run out of money.
Well, I think fascinating. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but it's what a story. And I'm absolutely delighted to hear your last comments about why you leased it, and that meant that your roots and your headquarters are in Glasgow, and that's exactly what I done. I built a building that nobody would build in the Gorbals because I always wanted to make sure that anybody ever come to buy us could never move out of that headquarters. So Lee, thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your story, and obviously being very proud Glaswegian. I wish you all the success in both Maryhill and hopefully Govan.
Yeah, thank you very much, and nice to be on, guys.
And Lee, I've loved that story. We are investors with Professor Sir Christopher Evans in cancer drug discovery, and I'm going to bring him to Maryhill. He's a Welsh boy, a Welsh wizard, a Welsh maniac, a bit like yourself, being an Ipswich wizard. And I'm going to introduce you to Chris because he's doing great stuff in that as well.
Nice.
What a story. And it's great to hear someone from Ipswich loving Glasgow so much, Willie.
Well, I have two Glaswegian boys, right? They sound like you guys. They don't sound like me.
Brilliant. Okay, Lee, thank you very much.
Tom, what a show this was this week. Oh my, what a guest, right? And all the things we've got to talk about. And no doubt in the next few weeks, we'll have plenty more to talk about.
Yeah, and listen, for everybody who's worrying about the budget, don't worry about it. There's nothing you can do about it. All you can do is go on with your own business. And there was Lee, Mad Professor Lee, loves Glasgow, from Ipswich. He is positive, and that positivity hopefully will help grow his business. Brilliant, Willie.
To all the viewers and everyone listening, good luck, and we'll look to see you again next week.